Really what you're talking about is building trust. And
Yeah.
so it takes time to build trust. And, it's not something that happens overnight. So you have to, be willing to invest the time in building that relationship. And so I think that's phenomenal. It's that foundation of trust. Welcome to the Lead with Heart podcast. This is the podcast for people who believe that compassion and impact go hand in hand. Great leadership isn't just about results. It's about how we uplift others, inspire change, and serve our communities. If you're looking for insight on how to lead with empathy and make a real difference, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Moryah Jackson, and I'm so glad you're here. Today's conversation is one you won't want to miss. We're talking with Emily Fernald, and we're diving into how to build a community, how you can lead with heart, take action, and truly put people first. So let's get started. Hello, Emily. Thank you so much for joining the Lead with Heart podcast today. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. So I'm going to jump right in. My first question is, what personal experiences shaped the leader you are today?
Sure. I s- I grew up in a very service-oriented family. So that was probably the very first initiation. Both my father is a Shriner, and grew up going to all of his shrining events, as well as um, they were very involved in our community. So doing potluck dinners and baked bean suppers and all of that stuff, bringing the community together. And then my mom is a nurse and school teacher. And so grew up doing a lot of things with her after school. And one of the first things she pushed both my sister and I into, which we ended up loving, but one of the first things that we did was Girl Scouts. And so from a very young age as a brownie, and then moving, up through high school, Girl Scouts was a big part of my life and shaping that community and service aspect. For who we were going to be. And all the men in my family are involved in shrining, masons, community activities. And so really just from a very small age grew up of that mindset of service and being a part of our neighborhood and our community.
Wow, that's amazing. I love hearing that story. And you continue to live a life that's reflective of, how you grew up and dedicated to community. Maybe what's your earliest memory, or do you recall your parents talking to you about what community is, or did you just see them do it in action?
I just saw them do it in action. I think we have a big family. I grew up on a very small island in Maine, and a lot of that island had grown up together. And so we are very neighbor focused because if no one else is going to help you. And so we all had to help each other. And I think I just saw them bringing Thanksgiving dinner to neighbors, and my mother organized the drive at the elementary school for the kids who did not have a Christmas, and grew up seeing those presents and things at our house and having to help wrap them. And we just never really asked, why do you do these things? It was just kind of ingrained into all of us to be a part of the community and help each other out. Both my sister, like I said, was a Girl Scout as well, grew up in that mindset. My brother was a Boy Scout and then did a lot of service leadership through high school. And so I think it just really is something all of our friends did. It's just really just a part of all of us growing up on this rural community together.
Mhm. I absolutely love that. So really, you grew up with your parents leading with heart. So you saw it and it really was, who your family was and it really became who you are. So I think that's phenomenal and commendable. Now that you're older, you've had some opportunity to reflect. Do you know or can you define what leading with heart means to you or what community means to you?
For me, leading with heart doesn't mean taking the business piece out of it. It just means keeping the morality and the ethics in it. And so I think there's ways to motivate and to encourage and to be profitable without having to be cutthroat or taking the person out of what you're doing. I think learning learning how others operate and learning what motivates them and then learning what they're passionate about can really forward project your business. And I think being able to learn that about people and taking the time to get to know people, I think that's something. We're such a fast-paced society now that we don't know our neighbors and we don't see people face to face and we don't get to know each other. And so spending those little bit of time to do that with your team members and your managers and even your clients, it's just going to make people want to do more for you and for your business and have more of an investment. And so I think that's really how I've tried to lead is one, getting to know those that I work with and really showing my passion for what I do. And then two, leading by example. I think if I'm asking someone to work extremely hard for what we're doing, then I should be demonstrating that as well. Really leading as a moral and, leading with my heart and with my passions is how others will be able to see that as well.
Wow, Emily, that was powerful. You had a lot there, a lot of questions that I want to ask as a follow-up. But first, I want to go to, we live in a fast-paced society.
Mhm.
Do you have any tips for our listeners? How do you slow down or how do you take the time to really get to know someone or how do you take the time to actively listen to help build those relationships?
I think that's the hardest part is how do you to be completely transparent because we all have as I've heard you say before, we all have a million tabs open in our head and we're bouncing between all of those and always looking for what's next, what do we have to accomplish next, what else has to be done. But I think there's so many pieces throughout our day with interactions with people that it doesn't have to be anything big. It could be someone's talking about a book or a TV show and you either have read that or seen it, or there's ways to form those little connections and just get to know people. And that could take 1 minute out of your day. And I think being conscious of that everything doesn't have to get done right now. It's something I struggle with constantly, but knowing that those little moments in the day or within our lives, because it's not just who you work with, it's who you surround yourself with. So those little moments are important. And that's how eventually you're going to get even more done. Because again, those people are going to want to do things for you and help out as well if they know that you're committed and want to help them succeed or help them progress or be a good friend. You're always going to get those gifts back in return is how I see it.
That's really powerful. And I mean, yes, we're all moving fast and you are not the only one. You're not alone. I wasn't expecting to have this magic bullet answer or anything, but I just kind of wanted to hear what you thought. But no, I appreciate you being transparent and vulnerable. And I mean, I'm the same way, just constantly running from one thing to another. And I feel like for me, I've tried to, not very well all the time, but tried to tell myself, add some additional buffer time. If I'm planning a meeting and it's supposed to be 1 hour, I'll add an extra 30 or 45 minutes just to give me a little bit more time so I don't have to rush a conversation that got really good or, I have an opportunity to linger a little bit more. And, also just being in the moment, being present in the moment and listening. So I love how you said, if somebody mentioned a book or a TV show, just taking the time to spend that minute to connect and say, oh, yeah, by the way, I mean, I think that's phenomenal. And you do that when you're present in the moment. So I think that's great. Two other things that I want to hit on. One, I mean, really what you're talking about is building trust. And so it takes time to build trust. And, it's not something that happens overnight. So you have to be willing to invest the time in building that relationship. And so I think that's phenomenal. It's that foundation of trust. The other thing that I wanted to point out, you talked about you don't have to be cutthroat, or you don't have to take the person out of it. I would love to hear more. Just, what do you mean by being cutthroat? What do you mean by being people-centered? What are some tips on how to do that, and, how important that is? That was just really powerful for you to talk about that. Sometimes I don't think we say it all the time or dig deeply into it, but just tell us a little bit more about that.
think I, I think again that goes back to trust of we can't accomplish anything on our own. I mean, there's definitely some of the most successful people who are at the top. If you listen to any of their stories, they had a really hard road because a lot of that was done by themselves. And they were secluded, or they were, they didn't have a lot of friends, or they didn't trust people because they were trying to get to the top. And I think it's just it feels a lot better and it's more successful when you are doing it together. And I think being able to look within yourself, and if someone else accomplishes something on your team that you were in charge of, that's great. It reflects well on you, but giving credit to them is just going to, again, make them work harder, have them be more motivated, and look to you as someone that leads with your heart, because you're not cutthroat. You're not taking their gratitude of something that they worked hard on for you. And again, at the end of the day, it's all coming together because you're all trying to accomplish one goal. And so for us here at Habitat, being such a small team, we really have to trust and rely on each other, because there's no way at the end of the day that we could be building 3 houses simultaneously right now, because the funding, the construction, the volunteers, the homeowners being out on site, all of that has to come together because all of us work together. And at the end of the day, the product is these 3 houses for these 3 families who have worked incredibly hard. And we all get to celebrate that win with the dedication and the ribbon cutting because we all did it together. And I think that's just a showing of an organization that has been around for nearly 50 years and is still going strong, and still has a logo that's recognizable, still has a bipartisan support, still has community support. And that's all because we did it together. And we lift each other up and we promote one another, and we lift those up who we work with, because at the end of the day, our clients are not clients, they're home buyers, they're customers, and they work really hard. And so I think, again, it's that whole idea of a collective voice accomplishes a lot more than just one person doing it by themselves.
I absolutely love that. And yes, all of that. And, leading with heart is about being self-aware. And I think it's so important that when you're working on something together, you show appreciation and you show gratitude, and you don't try to steal somebody else's work. It's okay to acknowledge someone else for doing a good job. That does not take anything away from you. And I think sometimes some leaders forget that. And one of my favorite sayings is, if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. And I just think it's really powerful. Now, here's the thing. It's not always easy to do that, and that's why I want to have this podcast and have these conversations to help listeners understand, yes, you can do it. Here are some tips to help you do that. But that's really powerful, everything you said. Um, Given the climate that we're in today, I love how you mentioned that Habitat for Humanity has bipartisan support. I would love to hear more from you about, how do you work with people that have different, maybe morals or ethics or values from you? How do you bridge that gap? And again, I'm not expecting you to have that magic
All the answers, yeah.
But, if you have some tips or you have some reflections on, what are things that have worked, because that is truly impressive today that we do as Habitat for Humanity work with people from different religious backgrounds, different political backgrounds, different communities. I mean, it's all types of difference that we're working with on a regular day, but we're able to accomplish that goal. And I do think you said it best. It's an organization that's been around for over 50 years, is respected, get recognition, how does that work?
The bipartisan aspect, I think how Habitat has really been my take, and I'm not going to solve all the problems, and I'm not speaking for all of Habitat, but my take on it is that at the end of the day, housing is a basic need, and we all can relate to, we can all identify with the fact of the foundation that housing provides for everything that we do in life, for our health, our education, our children's well-being, our mental health. And when you have people who do not have that, that is a hard concept for a lot of people to understand, but it is something that people can get behind, that they understand that if they did not have their house tomorrow, what effect would that have on them? And I think that's one piece of it. I think the other piece is that Habitat has really worked its messaging, and it's something that I'm passionate about within it, our messaging around the fact that it is not a giveaway program. This is not just a handout that someone can apply for and here you go, you get a house or you get an apartment or you get, your keys to do this or that. Habitat is an investment program. It's a partnership. And so our home buyers have to work on each other's houses. They have to complete hours on their own house. They have to do financial education and counseling. They have to do home buyer workshops. At the end of the day, they're pouring hundreds of hours of sweat equity into achieving this dream of homeownership. Whereas many of us could just go out and get a loan and boom, we have a house. The investment that they're putting into this asset is something that many of us won't ever have to do, but we can appreciate the amount of work that they did and that it is not something that was just given away. And so you know that your money, when you're investing into the organization, someone else is investing their time and their energy into building this house and achieving this house. It's not just going to someone who won't appreciate it. And I think that's a way that all sides can really get behind what we do, because there are some that want the programming in there. They want people to have the basic needs and just have them and have that opportunity. But then there's others that want to see the work. And even if that's a misconception that people aren't working hard for the things that they need or that they get, at the end of the day, we have the proof behind our concept. And I think that's made our brand really stand out from other people and other organizations.
I absolutely love you explaining that. I think a common myth is that Habitat gives homes away. Habitat for Humanity does not give homes away, and you nailed it. Pun intended. You nailed it. We, as a homeowner, we don't have, like, I didn't build my house. I didn't have to put 300 hours in getting education. I went and I got a mortgage. So, I mean, I think that's amazing, and I love that you laughed at my corny joke.
Yeah. No, I got it.
And then, from a lead with heart perspective, I mean, you also said it, we are able to find common ground. When you lead with heart, you're able to find common ground. So even though certain groups of people might come at this issue from different perspectives, we've been able to find common ground and, somewhat meet the needs from the different groups and work together. And I think that's an amazing thing. I know for me, the one of the most rewarding things is when I go to a build site and I see so many different people working together, or, everybody has on a hard hat and safety glasses, and you don't know who the homeowner is. You don't know who a corporate sponsor is. Titles don't matter. Socioeconomic status doesn't matter. The things that may divide us, they really don't matter because you have that hammer. And, better than I do, the theology of the hammer and bringing people together to work and build something. And that's really powerful.
Yeah. I think it's huge, and you are correct in that when you're out on site, you just don't know who's there. You don't know if it's the leader of the company. You don't know. We've had the mayor out there on the roof. We've had, corporations working side by side with churches. We've had general volunteers out there just doing it because they believe in the mission. I mean, it really is something that brings everyone together. And I think something that I always appreciated as a volunteer was that one, a lot of the times you can meet the homeowner. They're going to be there. They might be working right alongside you, and that's very impactful. But then two, you get to see your accomplishment. So a lot of times when you're volunteering, you feel good about it. You know you did work, you know you made an impact. But with Habitat, if you are there on Walls Day and you're going to be standing walls and you get there and it's just the floor system there. And then at the end of your 6-hour shift, you step back and you've stood all the walls on a house. I mean, that's huge. You saw that you actually did something. Your volunteerism truly made an impact on that piece of that build and that homeowner's life. And I think that's huge. And getting to one of the things that we do at the end of each shift is you get to sign the house and leave a message. And those are messages that will reflect for the well wishes of that homeowner throughout the whole time that they're there. They won't be able to see them. They'll be underneath the sheetrock and under everything that goes into the house. But they know that all of those volunteers poured in that sweat and just always wanted the best for them. And I think that's such a pick me up, and it's such, again, a community and a togetherness that we don't see a lot today.
Mhm. I absolutely love that. And I think that's a great transition into why is it important to volunteer? So for you, this was something that was a part of your family culture and you grew up doing this. And so somewhat inherently, and you feel the value. And I love that you mentioned when volunteers are working with Habitat for Humanity, they actually see their impact because sometimes you volunteer and you may not see it. And that's very rewarding. But what do you think or what do you believe are some of the benefits of volunteering and why should people volunteer, especially when we're in a fast-paced society, there's a lot going on, what are those benefits and what would you say to encourage somebody who maybe hasn't volunteered to do so?
That's a great question. Has a lot of different factors in it. And it's very hard. I always say just try. Like, having friends is a big thing of, if you have, like, for me, I've brought many friends out onto the build sites before, or into, like, the fold of Habitat, at least into an event or at a build site event, or we used to have a young professionals program. Bringing friends along for the ride is a very easy way to get people invested and to just see your mission. And a lot of my friends did not grow up how I grew up. They didn't grow up with that community aspect. And I think getting to see what someone does and what their organization does, it just, again, gives a little buy-in. And so I've definitely had friends who had no idea that, again, it's not a giveaway program, that the people build their houses, that sort of thing. I have many friends who have never swung a hammer before and getting them out onto the site. I think that's another way, is if there's a skill involved or something that they could benefit from. I feel like that's a way to kind of bring people out. And again, to me, it's not necessarily that they're invested from the get-go, that before they've even come out, they're all invested into Habitat and they believe in the mission. It's literally just getting them to that point, to the volunteer point. And then for many organizations, that's all you need. That was all I needed. I did one Habitat trip in college, and from there I did all the Habitat trips. And so I think you need that one little piece. And maybe it's not Habitat for everyone. It might be hunger. And I think associating with, again, getting to know those people, associating with their passions, and maybe it's a joint thing of I'm passionate about housing. It's my passion project. But for one of my other friends, maybe it's or coworkers, they had food insecurity growing up, and maybe Harvest Hope is their passion project. And so having that mutual volunteering isn't going to hurt anyone. So you could volunteer as much and try, as many different organizations as you want. At the end of the day, it's only helping the organization. And so I think there's always that too of how can we support one another, and each other as friends and passions and, history. And so I think that's a piece of volunteering. Um, the other piece is just getting that initial investment. Like I said, I mean, getting someone to come out, try it, and then they're asking questions. They wanna learn more. They wanna know more. And I think that's what we see. For me, the tangible piece is something I always promote to people looking to volunteer because it really does make a difference when you can see the hard work that you put in.
I love that. And I think volunteering is so critical, especially now. People are so connected on social media or their devices, but there's actually a loneliness epidemic. And there's research that shows volunteering is just as beneficial for the volunteer as it is for the recipient. And so when you go out, you can have fun. You can learn a new skill. You can connect with people. You can learn about issues in your community. And so I think volunteering is critically important, especially now. And humans are social creatures. We're supposed to be together and work together and interact. And I think volunteering is a great way to fill your cup and fill someone else's cup as well. So I think that's really powerful.
I agree, and it's an all ages thing, and I think that's important too. It can be a family activity, it can be a friend's activity, it can be coworkers, and then it can be a support in a community once you've left all of those things. So we're a very lucky affiliate that we've built a builders club, which are the red shirts, and they come out every Thursday. Most of them are retired, and they come out week by week because that's their friends now. That's their support network. That's their socialization. My grandfather had his little coffee club every morning. And I mean, you have to have once you retire, once you move to a new community, you have to build a new one. And I think volunteering is a great way to do that because again, at the end of the day, it's what you're passionate about, it's what you care about. And so being able to volunteer and help someone else is like you said, it fills your cup too.
That's powerful. I absolutely love that. Right now, there's, negative news or people can be kind of pessimistic. What keeps you hopeful? What's something that, helps you remain hopeful?
Well, I'll speak let's see. I'll speak specifically to Habitat first, just within our day to day, because it is being in a nonprofit world and today is it, it's always changing. It's a very you don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know where your funding's going to come from all the time. You don't know if you're going to be able to be sustainable 6 months from now. It's a tough environment right now, and so to stay positive within that, I these pictures on my wall, these are all of my homeowners that I've closed on since I've been with Habitat. There's 56 of them up there, and I look to them. That's partly why I added that wall when I moved into this new office was I wanted that reflection time because it's not always uh great or positive to come to work or to, have to deal with what you're going to deal with that day. And so to have a constant reminder of why we do what we do, I think is huge. And for me, specifically in my position, I get to see everyone from start to finish. Everyone else gets to see the little piece along the way, their part that they play in that team aspect. And I get to see everyone from application to into the program to throughout their educational piece and financial piece, get to offer them the lot that they're going to accept, do the selections with them, and then the ceremonies, and then close on the house. And everyone else only gets to see little pieces along the way. but I've built that relationship and see them from start to finish. And I think that's really powerful, at least for me. That's my favorite aspect of my job. And so that keeps me going, knowing that there's such a need and that there are so many people out there who truly don't have stable housing. And that if we can make just a little impact, that's enough for me to bear the weight of whatever else is going on. And then on the other side, I think we have to be conscious of filling our own cups ourselves, and whatever that looks like, if it's being outside, if it's traveling, if it's music, if it's your dogs or your husband or your wife or whoever, I think having time that you are working on the positives and not thinking about anything negative that's going on outside of your little world for at least a little bit is huge, because it's just going to keep filling up your cup so that you can again bear the weight of other things that are happening.
I think that's very powerful. And I think so often when we talk about leadership in general, and for me more specifically, leading with heart, we don't always talk about self care. And so I love that you said, in order for you to continue the mission, in order for you to take care of others, you have to find whatever it is that fills your cup so you're able to take care of others. And I think that's really important. One of the phrases that I've heard lately that really resonates with me is self care isn't selfish. Sometimes you think, oh, if you stop to do something that you enjoy or do something for yourself, sometimes you think, oh, I could use this time to do something else, or I could use this time to help someone else. But it's so important for you to stop and take care of yourself. So thank you for
It really
sharing.
is.
That's a really good one. I do also want to take some time first and just say, wow, and thank you. The fact that you've worked with 56 families, that's impressive. I mean, talk about building community, talk about making a difference. And in your experience working with those 56 homeowners, what are some things that you've learned or some life lessons you've learned about how a home impacts a person or that home impacts a family, and how it kind of spreads beyond the individual and, maybe into other areas?
Item that we get asked all the time. I mean, or a combative item almost, of that, well, you're just building a house. Like it's just one family, it's just one person that you're helping. And that's not true at all. It spans generational change. I think, yes, in the moment, it's one house, it's one individual or an individual and their children. But at the end of the day, we're building a foundation for that family and that individual. And I have these 56 behind me. We have another 13 who are waiting for their homes in our program right now. And I have been here, August will be 15 years. And so in that time frame, I have seen little babies that were in the program when their mom was completing her sweat equity hours at our office. I've seen them now go off to high school, into college. I've seen people graduate from the military. I've seen people start their own business. And it's all because they now had a foundation, and they will, it's not me making that assumption. They will tell you specifically that their house spurred all of that, of being in a home where their children could feel comfortable doing their homework, where they had friends and a community around them, where they were now in a new school district where they were able to thrive and had teachers that cared about them, and where they were able to save for college or for that family vacation or for just the general savings to have a cushion. The idea of knowing that if something happened and you have a savings, that's huge. And most of us don't get to experience that. Most of us are still paycheck to paycheck. And for these families, that's been how it's always been. And so for many of them to be able to move into a house and to feel comfortable, have a mortgage they can afford, because that's the other piece that people think, is that our houses are free. They're not. They pay property taxes, they pay homeowners insurance, they pay a principal payment, but it's a payment that's affordable. It's based on their income. And that just spawns a lot of wealth building and potential growth for their community. It sets them up for success, and it sets them up to be able to invest more in themselves, their family, and their neighborhood. Because at the end of the day, if you have healthy families in your community, that's just going to make you be in a healthier community. That just builds up your neighborhood. And so having that ability to feel okay financially, again, that allows you to dream. It allows your kids to think about college. It allows you to think about retirement. It allows you to do so many things that maybe when you're in such a emergency mindset, you aren't able to do. And so, yes, it's one house that we're building, but at the end of the day, it's that adult, that child, their children, the great grandchildren, and I've seen all of it. Some of them now um, have passed away, and their house is now in their children's name. That's asset building. That's wealth that was not in that family before, and I think that's huge. That's something that we all strive for is to be stable and comfortable and be able to keep ourselves healthy and our children safe.
Wow, that is powerful. Again, you just had another rich response that had so many different facets. So no, that's wonderful. Thank you for what you do and talk about, building a community and helping people dream. I mean, that's what we want. We want to have strong community. So thank you for everything that you do. I do want to tap into some of your wisdom because you've done so many different things. You've worked with so many different people. How have you personally defined or redefined success for yourself? And maybe what tips would you have for listeners as they're trying to figure out and find their way?
I've been through a lot of growth through and I have to keep coming back to Habitat because it really did spawn my professional growth of moving from position to position and now into this position that I've been in for almost 14 years. I think for me, defining success is an evolution. I don't think there's ever a stopping point. I think if you are not being challenged anymore, then that's probably your stopping point to move on and do something else. I think for me, we're in a space, which is housing, that there's always challenges. We're never going to solve the problem. There's always going to be more to do. And so for me, I think the personal success of myself is building out a program that I feel confident in, that I know has had successful measures in and positive outcomes, and hearing that feedback from the people who have actually experienced it. I think for me that provided me with a lot of personal growth and provided me with a lot of feeling of achievement and accomplishment just professionally. And then knowing that my team trusts me too, I think that's been a huge aspect in knowing that I've accomplished a lot professionally when you have a team that trusts you and looks to you for guidance and advice and feedback. I think that's been a big piece. And then knowing that I feel successful personally just in hitting some of my own personal milestones of being married and having two great stepsons that I'm very proud of and their accomplishments, and a family that I've seen grow and see my brother and my sisters hit accomplishments. I feel like success is how you define it. And for me, it's just always changing and it's always evolving. And I think for me, just a lot of that is more internal and just personal. In terms of seeing other people grow. And maybe some of that was because I helped them along the way, which goes back to the whole aspect of leaning on each other and knowing that there are people there who you can count on, mainly because we lifted each other up. And so I think now hearing from some of my friends of we were out, this is a little story tangent. We were out on I was visiting a few of them, and I was talking about everything that we were doing and everything we had going on and changing our program. And it was two of my friends and my husband was there. and one of them turned to him and said, "How does it feel being with such a boss lady?" And I was like, that's personal success right there. Knowing that friends and family are proud of you and see the work that you're doing. I think at the end of the day, the titles don't matter. It's what you're proud of, the product that you put forth and the people that you've influenced and you've helped. And so for me, I guess that would be how I've defined my success and what I do.
I absolutely love that. And I think a great takeaway for listeners is that success is how you define it. Sometimes we look externally to, see or understand what success is, but I really do believe it's how you define it. And I think you said it. I love, like, it might shift. Success might mean one thing for you at one point, but it may change. I mean, we're allowed to grow and evolve. And so I think that's wonderful. And I love your story. That was a good, that was a good thing to hear from your experience.
And I think it's so important to listeners too, I mean, this is leading with heart. I think it's so important to understand it's not just the financial piece. I mean, people can be very successful financially and be completely unhappy and feel like they haven't accomplished anything. And I think you have to, at the end of the day, have that moral component as well, that that yes, you've possibly accomplished fiscally, but how have you done it personally and with other people? And I think that's your sustenance. I mean, you can buy things, you can do things, you can travel with the money, but to me anyway, doing all those things won't feel the same if you're not doing it with people you love and a community around you. And so I think success can be looked at from all sides and angles, but I think it's just having a group of support around you and lifting each other up, like I said.
I think that's really powerful. I know you and I have had this conversation before, and I do want to bring it up a little bit. Just thinking about the context of society. I mean, when you and I were growing up, there was Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, there was character education, there was Points of Light and George Bush, and there are all these civic-minded organizations or programs or wholesome TV shows. Talk a little bit about how the context in which you grow up impacts, your values, your morals, your ethics, your sense of community.
I think it really like you said, it develops you as a person, and it's really hard to not see all of that today in what I view anyway, with again, going back to the fast-paced society and having so many options and the online piece, and we didn't have any of that. You met your friends by going outside and playing or by joining the Girl Scouts or joining a group. You didn't meet them, through a screen. And for some people, it's formed a whole new support system. The benefits of having friends at your fingertips who are online, that's a whole other side of community that I'm not as familiar with. It's very different for me, but for some people it's been huge. That's been their support system. And so I don't want to discount that. But I think having we grew up with 4 channels, one of them was PBS, and having that was huge. That's how I learned how to be a person, essentially. You have your friends and family around you, but we still grew up with TV. We still were sat down in front of Sesame Street, but it was just a very different way to grow up than I feel like a lot of kids today are growing up. And I know that we've tried to instill in both the boys an idea of service. And I think that's where it falls on us as adults and parents. And again, goes back to role modeling. I work for a nonprofit, and my husband is voluntold all the time, and so are the kids to come and do different things. And they might gripe and they might hate it, but at the end of the day, they have a great time and they know that they did something great. And I think that falls on us as adults who did grow up in that environment to, again, role model and to speak to and to advocate the importance of service and the importance of building out these communities and supporting each other. It's how Habitat was founded, was neighbors helping neighbors. And in today's world, we've gotten so far from that. We're so separated. But there are basic needs that we all agree on, and food and housing and education are just a few of those. And there's organizations that surround all of those services. And if we can find some way to instill that in our youth and to instill the importance of that, I think hopefully we can turn around and become a community that supports one another again. And there are organizations out there and youth out there that feel very passionate about that. And I just hope that they can spread into other organizations, into other, essentially phone tree out to bring more people onto that ride and onto that journey. We have a great Habitat Campus chapter with nearly 100 kids that are a part of that. And I think that's huge. Again, it goes back to being at a service organization where you can actually go out and do something. And if there is an organization that has those capabilities, then I think an advocacy piece, somewhere that youth are able to use their voices and speak to, because at the end of the day, that really is what people want to do. They want to be active. They want to have that feeling that they accomplished something in that investment, like we talked about. And yeah, there's a lot of potential there, but
No, that's great. I think that was wonderful. And I mean, again, let's not discount the social and the screen piece, the virtual component of it, but how can we harness it and focus on something good? And I love to say there are great examples. There are pockets of what I call bright spots everywhere. How do we help get more of those bright spots? So that's
love
awesome.
that.
So we talked about a lot. It's been a wonderful conversation. I enjoyed talking with you as always. What's one thing you would love for our listeners to leave with or take away from this conversation?
Ooh, we did talk about a lot. I'm trying to think. I think I would like listeners to, again, take away the idea that in order to build yourself up, you don't have to tear each other down. You can work together collectively to accomplish a mission and to make an impact on this world. That community has become such this lost world, this lost phrase, like we're talking about. And I think it's just, there is so much potential that we could rebuild that. And whether it's with your team going out and doing something together, or with your family or your friends, I think at the end of the day, if there's something that you as a listener can do to go out and build up someone else's day, it's only going to make you feel better, and it's only going to fill your cup more, like we talked about.
Wonderful. Well, Emily, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for everything that you do, and talk about a person who exemplifies love your neighbor. That's you. So I really appreciate it. Whoever listens to this, I know they left with a lot of tips and inspiration. So it was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.